Hey everyone! One of the best ways to connect with our readers is offline in real life. Now, we all know that, but you may wonder, how would I go about doing that exactly? That's what we're going to talk about today with my guest. She's going to tell us her process and, excuse me, how her process works, and that it not only helps her sell books, but it also helps her form lasting relationships with many of her readers. That's what we really want, isn't it? Hi, I'm Patricia Durgan, the Christian Message Coach, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing tutorials and interviews to help Christian writers, speakers, and artists take their message online. This is episode number 137, How to Grow Your Audience Using Book Clubs. Hello, Jayme Mansfield. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Rocking and rolling over here. Let me ask you, while I'm looking at to see if I'm actually connected on Facebook, tell me, you live in Colorado, but you have a deep love for horses in Wyoming. How did that come about?
Well, I spent a week up at a wonderful dude ranch, the V-Bar Ranch, beginning of summer, and had my own horse for a week and rode up on the top of buttes. This was no horse to, tail to nose ride. It was the real thing, and I was on my slice of heaven on this earth. It was wonderful. So it goes deep in my roots.
Is that the first time that you've had opportunity to go there?
To that particular place. I grew up riding horses, so I have it, definitely in my blood, but it had been a while since, it was funny, it was actually a riding, horse riding, hard to say those, and wonderful other people, but I was completely happy, just the horse and myself. That's all I needed.
Yes.
It was really, truly a gift, actually, in many ways.
It sounds absolutely wonderful. And I'm guessing you're going to go back?
I hope so. I will get up there some way or another. It's beautiful country up there. Absolutely, truly breathtaking.
How nice. How nice. Hello, Cindy Reynolds. Thanks very much for being here with us today. We appreciate that. We've had a few little glitches, but we're rocking and rolling. So thanks for being with us and waiting for us. So let's talk first about your art. Then we want to talk about your writing, your books, and then we've got a little marketing element about book clubs. I believe you're going to mention something to us.
Yes.
You've taught art for years. You've loved art for years. You've got an art studio, and that's been going on for a good while, and it's called Piggy Toes Art Studio.
Yes,
okay.
I know.
So I've got to ask, what's that all about?
Well, there's always an explanation. It started 23 years ago when my oldest, I have three boys, my oldest was just a year, and the company started as a hand-painted children's furniture company, and we were playing Piggy Toes, and he actually was saying Piggy Toes, so that actually was how it was named. And once you go through all the legalities and the money to officially register trademark, you can just kind of keep it.
That's right, baby.
It's catchy, even though I'm not doing, really children's furniture so much anymore, and it's become adult and children's art instruction and kind of my own working art studio. The name has stuck, so.
After 23 years, I'm sure that the people who need to know it, and that it's fun just to have a conversation about it, share the name.
Yeah, absolutely. The bank tellers, when I go to make my little, deposits after classes, they always want to know what in the world it is. So it opens for conversation.
Well, now, speaking of art, you are an artist yourself. I've got two books. I think you're familiar with them. One is called Chasing the Butterfly. And one is your latest one called Rush, titled Rush. And I was surprised to learn that you didn't create these book covers. That just sort of floors me.
I know. Well,
They're lovely, by the way. They're lovely.
Yeah, there's actually kind of a funny story about that. When Chasing the Butterfly, my debut book, was going through the publishing process, my agent at the time said, Jayme paints. Would you consider her doing the cover? And the publisher said, well, yeah, let's see what she has. And at first I thought, isn't that wonderful? I'm going to write and do the book cover as well. But as we got, thick into the editing process and all that goes with getting a book out, I thought, this just is feeling a little too much to me. So I got in touch with a very close friend of mine, Kelly Berger. She's a professional Colorado artist, does absolutely wonderful work. She read the manuscript, fortunately loved it, and painted a beautiful cover. And so she did such a nice job with Chasing the Butterfly that when Rush came out, even though it's a standalone book, my publisher said, hey, would your friend be up for doing that cover? So I hope it's something that can continue. She actually has done a painting by accident for my next completed manuscript that's out there in the big publishing world right now.
Well, let me show you. If you're just joining us, we had a few little technical problems. So we're just starting with Jayme Mansfield, and these are her 2 books. And we're going to talk mostly about Rush today, but those are the covers, and they're just stunning. And I'm not an art person. I don't have that eye, but they're so obviously by the same artist.
Yeah.
And they're really just, they capture it, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And that's, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, more, but art is a common theme in all the books that I have written. And so that's really important to me. It's largely how I express myself, and it's been fun to put that into the stories.
And with your art studio, you're teaching both children and adults how to express themselves, aren't you?
Exactly, yeah.
Opening a new world to them?
It's the best when people create something and kind of sit back and say, wow, I did this. And I'm really proud of myself. There's something really gratifying in that, being part of that process.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, I also know that you're working on something, and it may be the one you just alluded to, Seasoned. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but I've got a question about it. You say that it's a slip time romance. What does that mean?
So it goes back and forth. It's contemporary setting, but it slips back to, in this case, World War II, and then back to contemporary, and then back kind of weaves its way up through the Korean War, Vietnam War, back and forth, though, with the couple in contemporary time. Similar to, I always hearken it to Nicholas Sparks' The Notebook. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, I had so much fun plotting that book. Actually, I'm not really much of an outliner plotter, but as the plot developed, I had so much fun going back and forth in time. It was really an exciting journey.
What precipitated that book? What was the trigger for the idea?
Well, that book is about 2 80-year-olds that become widowed and actually are both dared to go on online dating. And they meet one another and fall in love, but they both have secrets that they intend to take to the grave. But as the story goes back in time, the reader, we realize that their secrets involve the other person, unbeknownst to them. So it's a beautiful love story. It has a happy ending. I don't care giving that away already. But what precipitated it is my mom's story. And she had been married for 54 years, and my father passed away, and I actually dared her to go online dating. And I said, I will be your ghostwriter. Uh-huh. And so she would get inquiries, and she'd say, I have an email, and I had her password, so I'd go on and we'd get on the phone together, and we would laugh and giggle as I would compose these. It's horrible, really, to do to these people, but very nice. But she did meet an amazing man who was World War II, Korean, Vietnam veteran. He's 94 now. She is 83, and they are still going strong. So it's just that love knows no age, and there's a second chance to love. So, yeah, it was precipitated really by their true story. So I had a lot. I had fun with it.
Okay, I'm interested. Sign me up. I'm already interested in that.
I love this story. I'm crazy about it.
Well, since I've already broached the subject, tell us also before we go on to the next. You're collaborating another art book. You're collaborating with a friend who is an experienced in art forgery.
Yes.
Detection.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing that she does.
Let's put that last word in there. She's not an art forger. She's experienced.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she's legal. I don't have to work with her when she's in prison or something.
How far along is that? Is that
so? It's a very. I am thick into the manuscript. It's actually being written as a series, and I am neck deep in the first manuscript, and it's a very complex story, not only the art forgery and art authentication and all the kind of the scientific things about the forensics that my friend, who is she's really a world-renowned art forgery, art authenticator, is kind of, feeding to me, and I'll send things to her for her to kind of check for accuracy. And although she has quite a creative streak, so we've had a ball with it. But that story is really fascinating because even though it's contemporary, it has so much of art history. And this first one revolves around a Modigliani portrait, a supposed portrait, and it takes the character who the main protagonist is based loosely off of my friend that does this work. Mm-hmm. But it's layered in many deep intertwinings of is half a truth, still a lie. Mm. And she and I have had some fascinating discussions. So I'm really excited about this one. It's definitely challenging my my brain, and it's also turned out to be a really beautiful story. So I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
How did you become a writer? You already were so fulfilled as an artist. Then at some point there was a turning point, and you decided to write, or the Holy Spirit said, "Now's the time." Had you always had that goal?
No. I always liked to write. I always loved reading, and but I taught school for 20 years, elementary school, visual arts and language arts, and lots of grades in between there. And it was one of those how life just happens. I had stayed home with my 3 boys for a nice big stint that was wonderful. And it was time kind of to go back into the classroom, and I was all excited and ramped up. Mom's going back to work, everyone battened down the hatches. And the numbers came in too low in the kindergarten class, actually, that I was going to take over. And so it was one of those, we don't have room for you. I mean, truly, the day before school was starting. Wow. Wow. And I was absolutely rocked. It was such a humbling experience because I don't want to say I got fired, but I didn't really get fired, but it was, thank you, we don't need you. So long story short, I started, I was actually reading the Jerry Jenkins series at the time, the Left Behind series. And in the back of those books, it had a mention of the Christian Writers Guild. And I was like, sounds like something interesting. I have the time now. So I started taking classes through the Christian Writers Guild, which was based out of Colorado Springs. And it was the most amazing writing program. It was very intensive for 3 years, and I went through all the different levels, and it was all paired with a mentor, and I had some phenomenal, amazing mentors who are still very good friends now. And through that process, I started writing Chasing the Butterfly, really in response to some assigned lessons. Develop a character, develop a setting, a conflict. And that story just grew and grew. And it ended up being a very, very personal story. I think, I know what I've learned as a writer, that I write out of my heart and where my heart is at that time in my life. Even though the storyline may not follow that, it's the emotions completely that are playing out. And so it really became my cheap therapy, I guess. And my mentor said, you have something here. So I had entered it in a first novelist contest, and it placed very well, which, God is so good. It opened a door to an agent, and the agent found the publisher, and that's kind of how it all happened. But I never set out to really pursue being a published author.
Okay, that's a great story.
And that's the truth.
That is, I
still get a little choked up about it because it really has deep meaning to me.
Of course. I love that he prepared you for job X, and the family and the schedule and disconnecting from other things perhaps, and getting focused, the new direction, and
very creative in his planning.
That sounds like him. Sounds like him.
Yeah.
In Rush, your main character is a teacher. She's also in real life your great great grandmother, Mary.
Yes.
Do you? Was she? You're a teacher. She was a teacher in the book. In
Yeah.
real life, was she also a teacher?
She was. She was. She was actually one of Oklahoma's founding school teachers and started out teaching in a sod house. And as the schools actually started to, formalize, she was part of that whole thing. So she actually lived to be into her 80s. And, we have the old newspaper obituary that lists all of the school districts she was a part of. And it was so she really, in real life, that's what she did.
That is wonderful. Excuse me. And the time frame of the book is the Oklahoma, is it the land rush of, tell me what it is.
Yeah, so a lot of times people know about the 1889 land rush that was kind of made famous in the Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman movie Far and Away. Great movie. Well, and that was a big famous one because it kind of established Oklahoma City overnight. Well, in 1893, the Cherokee Strip land run, which is kind of the upper section of part of the upper part of Oklahoma, it was the land rush, the largest land rush ever, and over 100,000 participants in it. And it was total mayhem. But it was true that and I grew up hearing about Oklahoma grandma and kind of the tales, of this woman. My grandmother, would talk about her, and then my mom. And so I knew the story, and I knew that we had photographs and letters that detail all this history. So that's when I decided to write the book. It was really, really quite something to dig into all of that. And I spent, before I wrote a word, just reading these letters, looking at photographs and talking to my mom. And so it was really something to find out that this woman, as a young mom, her husband in real life did leave her to go to the late Colorado gold rush at that point. And he didn't come back. And she, with a lot of tenacity and perseverance, said, I'm doing this anyway. So she made her way from Missouri. And I had to concoct, obviously, a lot in this story, how she got there and with whom and such. But she really did participate as a single young woman in this race on horseback and rode out amongst coaches and wagons and people on horse and donkey and on foot and even bicycle, believe it or not. And she staked her claim of 160 acres and homesteaded, and the rest was history. So it was really something that she pulled this off on her own. There's very few women, period, but to do it on her own.
Yes. Did it become a even more personal experience as you developed it, did the research and developed it, the story? You're representing her in a way now?
It really did. And what, when I mentioned you write really from your heart and where you are. And at that point in my life, I was trying to make kind of the big decision if I stepped away from teaching school for so many years and really kind of going a different course in my life. And, I think sometimes it takes a lot of risk and bravery to step away from the familiar. So it did become kind of a personal story and the story really started as independence, perseverance, determination. And as I wrote the book, those were my feelings, and I was kind of her. But as the book progressed, it really became about her calling and really even forgiveness. So it took a little different juncture than I ever knew at the very beginning. But I guess that's the beauty of story. So yes, it did become very personal. And, I like to write from a very sensory point of view. So it was really neat to stand in those Oklahoma fields with her. It's beautiful.
I can imagine. I've never been there, but I can just imagine what it'd be like to breathe the air.
Yeah, the openness, the big sky.
And know that she had her dreams just like everybody
Yeah,
else.
and it was hard, hard, hard. As the coastal towns, the East Coast, people are living in their brick homes with running water and some form of heating and even a lot of electricity and it's not in every place, and then the middle of the country, particularly Oklahoma at that point, which obviously wasn't even a state then, was just wild.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was such a dichotomy what was going on in the country at that time.
Mm. And your readers are not the only people who think that this was a great book. You've been a finalist and won some awards. You've almost been one more, several. Got right up to the level, and then.
Yes, that is the family joke that I'm a really good mom. You're a great finalist, and I wear that proudly. Actually, I did win, really, truly win one, but that's right. It's it's nice to be.
Yes.
Feels good to be recognized.
I was interested in. I'm familiar with most of them, but the Laramie, the 2018 Laramie Book Awards. This is a long title, so hold on. For pre-1750s historical fiction. I didn't even know there was an award out there in Laramie.
Well, it's the Laramie Book Awards through Chanticleer Books and Reviews, and they do extremely extensive, like you were reading, very detailed award groupings. So it's shortlisted for that now. So we'll see what happens. But that was really what I really found exciting about the attention the book has received. Is it's received really wonderful compliments and been very accepted in the whole faith-based readership. And there's, that's obviously a big part of my life and where I write from my heart on that. But the general market has really, like this particular award you're speaking of, and a lot of the book clubs and the speaking events that I do, our general market. And I love that it's a piece of history that a lot of people, including myself, don't know a lot about it. I mean, if you live in Oklahoma, they teach it in the schools.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it was a phenomenal component of, at least particularly where I'm sitting here in Colorado.
So I want to ask you just a couple of questions about some conferences, and then we'll move right into that marketing about book clubs and small groups and so forth. You're speaking. They're so intertwined.
Yeah.
You went to the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference, and I had a question about that. It's just an outstanding conference, but there's conferences out there. What drew you over here to our side of the world?
I know, it's crazy, and I'm actually getting on a plane to fly back to Asheville in a couple of weeks to go to the novelist retreat that Yvonne Lehman puts on. It's a wonderful, smaller conference. Well, I think it all started because my publisher is Lighthouse Publishing of the Carolinas.
Yes.
And those people have really captured my heart. And that was a new adventure for me to go really to that part of the country. I hadn't spent time there. So from a financial standpoint, a flying standpoint, it makes no sense whatsoever. But it's, to be honest, I go there to fellowship. And I go there to get love from those people and to love on those people. And that's funny you say that, though, because I have made a concerted effort to go to more things out here. I was just at the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Conference a few weeks back, and there's Writers on the Rock that I participate out and help with that conference. So I'm trying to not always look, beyond my own backyard, but it's the people.
And the campus at Blue Ridge is so rich with peace, isn't it?
It is. It's really kind of a treat for me to get to go away to. I think it's really probably more about that than than the writing part, but I still like the conference and the classes and all that. But
yes. Yeah. Okay, so there's more that could be said about that, but I'm going to leave that way. You were going to share with us that you speak, and you mentioned this just a moment ago, sort of, we'll look back in what you said a moment ago. When our history, specific history, times in history, the writing process, you have a lot of information that you're tying in that other authors could do the same, and you're doing it both online and off, but specifically we're going to talk about how you can do that, how you have done it, and they can do it offline in small groups, speaking to small groups. And I've mentioned book clubs, but you're talking about retreats, teachers, travel organizations. I mean, you have a broad scope of people that you have make yourself available to, don't you?
Mm-hmm. I think it probably started more with the book clubs, and that's been a constant thread, which I hope never disappears, because I think I may have mentioned to you when we first connected that one of the biggest joys, unexpected joys out of being an author are all the people that I've connected with largely through the book clubs. Mm-hmm. You're so focused on when you get into the publishing, especially with your debut book, just kind of doing what you need to do. And then this aftermath of, everyone talks about the marketing and everything that they need to do. And yes, that's all true. But the book club component, it's really a kind of a magical place to be. So.
And but you have about one a month average.
Yeah, probably. And when the books were first releasing, I was probably doing almost one a week. 3 to 4, probably do about 2 a month now, which, is good. That's manageable. I have kind of intermingled with that I have my first big speaking event coming up October 20th out here in Colorado to about 400 to 500 people with some other authors. So I better get my act together on that one. I got some prepping to do for that. But, so that's fun. But I got to say, going to someone's home, being invited into someone's home, typically, they meet at homes, to have dinner with them. First, most of the book clubs have dinner or, snacks or whatever. And, to go and spend time with those people and ask about them. They always want to start talking about the book kind of before you all sit down to talk about the book. So I always try to flip it back to them and ask them about their lives and who they are, as readers. What are they reading? What authors do they enjoy? What kind of genre? And if you really listen, you can really get some fascinating information. Yes. And I love connecting with them. It's worth, I am, it's funny, everyone thinks I'm like a super extrovert, but I'm actually, I think maybe as I'm getting a little older too, I'm kind of teetering back and forth. But the extrovert part of me is that I think I'd say I'm more relational. Mm-hmm. So whether you're a quiet person or a really outspoken person, I think it's essential to make yourself available to go into people's homes and share about what you've created. They appreciate it.
This is a great segue. Tell us, how do book clubs find you and how do you find them?
Yeah. Honestly, it's really started word of mouth. I never advertised. Yes, in my newsletter and such, I'll say, hey, remember if you have a book club, I'd love to come visit, whether it's Skype or in person. It's great when it's in person, but it really started word of mouth. And I was shocked how many book clubs are out there. And plus, they're kind of on the upswing. There was a huge resurgence of them. But, if I go to a book club, well, I can almost guarantee that someone's mom's in a book club or someone's sister or their friends at work. And then they call. And so it just kind of is this on and on and on. And I've been actually going to, I'm amazed how many people are in more than one book club.
Really?
So actually this coming up, I'm going to a book club where the woman, I already met her at another book club, and she's having me come to speak to a different group, which that makes me feel good, that she got me back. So I think it's mostly word of mouth. I had some new author friends coming out with their debuts that said, can you give me your list of people that you did book clubs? And to be quite honest, I said, well, and I did give a few of them that I thought would be, open to their genre and such. But I said, you have to kind of get your own momentum going, I think, with it, because it has to be very genuine. It's not like something I think that you want to sit down and send out this mass email or flyer trying to solicit book clubs, if that makes sense. I think it's a very personal thing. And, but they're out there and they love to have authors come. Absolutely love it. And, I think it allows, they can ask questions and I can hear their feedback. Every book club, something comes up about whether it's Rush or Chasing the Butterfly that I didn't even think about. Every single time. And it just shows that, we all come to story from a different place. Every single person. And I love that about story. So that's how I find them, or they find me, I guess. And it's just kind of continued.
Now, when you go, what do you take with you? You even have some things to show us as well.
Yeah. Well, I definitely take my old basket of books. I've got one sitting there on the table. I try not to, I don't really wheel in with like a suitcase. I try to make it look friendly. Yeah. So I have my, I bring just a reasonable amount of I bring both books. I always bring my little bookmarks, and we've had a couple different things, made, these neat ones that a friend of mine sells on Etsy. And I also, just kind of a little segue, I do note cards because the book covers are so pretty. The cover of the books, Rush and Chasing the Butterfly, and people really liked to buy. I wasn't really sure at first, but they like to buy those as gifts for people or for themselves, or they'll buy a book with a note card set. I also bring, with Rush, I won't drag these out, but just I bring the old historical photos. Oh. And actually I have an old antique ladder that if the home kind of will accommodate, it's not a giant ladder, but I bring in all the photos and people are fascinated by seeing the real people in the book. And so I use, visuals. I do have a book trailer. Sometimes I'll bring my laptop and show them the book trailer. I always bring my newsletter sign up. And, this is where I'm not a hard sell. I never could have been in sales, really. I'm not a hard sell person, so I always explain to them instead of saying sign up on my newsletter. I really tell them how much this helps me, and this is the best thank you they can do for me is to let me continue to communicate with them. I would never put, someone's name on my newsletter without their permission, and this is their permission. I have learned the hard way, though, to always look before you leave if you can read their writing.
Yes.
So I got home and said, I have no idea what they wrote. Let's see. I also, one thing that's been real helpful, I made these postcards up, and on the back it says, keep the stampede going. And it's real tangible things that they can do to help me out. And they really want to help. And it's things like, writing a positive review. And, I suggest, Amazon or Goodreads or wherever, spread the word to other book clubs, like me on Facebook, just those things that we do as authors. But the reader, they don't always know how to help you. Right. And so I try to leave them something tangible. I also have just a, bio of myself in the book. So if they just want to share, oh, hey, I heard this author, this is her book. So again, I never go into someone's house with the intention to hard sell. And it's what I think is a really important little nugget. I've gone to book clubs with, larger book clubs, a lot of people, and then I've gone to some that are tiny. Maybe there's 4 people, and you never know what the outcome's going to be. Sometimes I've left selling more extra, copies of books with 4 people than with a large group. And so never assume or go in, I guess, with any expectations, because if there's been times I've walked away and we had a beautiful evening and I didn't sell one thing. That, you have to be okay with that.
Yes.
I'm okay with that because I have new friends and readers that, hopefully will read my next book, or will pass it on word of mouth. But they're perceptive. And if you go in there, I think just with the intention to sell, I think you're going to maybe be disappointed, would be at least my takeaway. it's really more about building the relationships. Now, I can say that the back of the room book sales have been good. I mean, I've done enough book clubs that when I put together proposals for my new manuscripts, and my agent says, make sure you include those back of the room sales,
Yes. Yes.
Which was really good advice on her part. When you really go back and kind of total up how many I've sold there, or, I have books for sale in my art studio and such, that really can add up. So I think that's very helpful on a number side, and plus you can sell it for your full price if you want to. Sometimes I discount my first book just if I'm kind of in the mood to do that.
Right.
So you have the control of doing that, and you can also you're selling them a book that's personalized, signed to them or to a friend, or and I think that means a lot. Like, I've had a lot of people at book clubs that read it perhaps on a Kindle version, but then they see it in real life and they love the cover, and when they want to be gracious, and they say, well, I want to get a paper copy too. So, or if someone listens to it on audio, sometimes they will follow up and buy a paperback. So that affords a lot. So it's it's the relationships. It allows you to go, if you really listen, you really hear what touched the readers' hearts, and perhaps what didn't. People have been very, very gracious, thank goodness. But you also have to go into them knowing that they are still the consumer, and someone could say something that kind of hurts your feelings, and how are you going to deal with that? And it's okay.
Let me check Facebook really quickly, see if we have any questions or comments.
Sure.
We're winding down, and I don't want to let anybody miss the chance to say something. Dee Lundgren and Cindy Reynolds are here. Thank you, ladies, for being here. We appreciate it. And I think that both of you would be great candidates for this marketing technique. You're both Cindy Reynolds and Dee Lundgren are very warm, very personable, very genuine ladies. So they would go in it with the attitude that you go into it with. And you're also talking about the long game.
Yeah.
You don't want a buyer today. You want a buyer for years.
Yeah, that is so right on with it. Mm-hmm. And they're not just even readers. A lot of people become my friends.
Yes,
it's really been fun.
And that's icing on the cake, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Two people like-minded.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And the women you mentioned, I'd, of course, be more than happy to talk with them further, too. So that invitation's open if I can be of any help.
Thanks very much for that. I know they're going to be interested in that. Now, we know what you talk about because we covered that a little while ago. It can be history. It can be art. It can be the land rush. It can be the books themselves, one or both of the books. But then when you're finished with this program and they've hosted you in whatever manner they did, and you connected with them, and it's time to leave and go home, and then later in the days to come, you have follow-up. What is it that you do for the follow-up?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Well, and two quick things. One thing, I always go with the hostess gift as well, too, though. And I was going to make one so I could show you, but I make this kind of neat bag that's, kind of this vintage-looking bag that has a set of note cards inside and a handwritten thank you. And they're always surprised by that. But it's the least I can do, really, to go into their home. So I always make sure I take a hostess gift. And it's two people hosting it, then two hostess gifts. I always, and there's a few times I've forgotten, and it's just broken my heart, but I always get a group picture with the people with, sometimes they like to hold their book. One thing I'd suggest is to do that earlier in it, because sometimes people have to all of a sudden decide they have to leave and they need to scoot out the door. Mm-hmm. So a group picture is really great, but I use that I always send an email thank you with the photograph. Mm-hmm. If people signed up with their emails, I send it to as many of those people as possible, or I'll send it to the hostess and ask that she sends that out with a little follow-up, reminder, gosh, spread the word. If you enjoyed the book, would love, if you take the time to do a review. But it's not so much of a sales time. It's obviously a thank you. So a photo, a written thank you, that was in the bag. So, I don't have to come back and think, oh, I forgot to, send a note. It's already kind of taken care of up front.
Mm-hmm. I like all of those ideas. They are so applicable. And they are easy to do. You can just schedule it ahead of time. You're not talking about fresh fruit or baking a cake.
Right.
You can do 30 of them at a time and just walk into the closet on that day and put one in your car.
Yeah, that's what I do.
They are a personal touch.
Yeah.
They really are. And that's another way for you to connect with them and let them know that you are personally thankful that they gave you that access.
Yeah. And one thing I'd quickly mention, sometimes people, ask me, well, do you charge for these? I don't. I have never charged to go to a book club or had a fee. People sometimes call me and say, ask me if I'd like to come. And, well, what's your fee? And I know a lot of authors do. I understand that. It's not something that I've chosen to do. If I was, my phone was ringing off the wall, maybe I'd consider a small fee. I don't know. But I don't know. I think that's a real personal call.
Mm-hmm. Good word. That's a good word.
Yeah.
And times change. Circumstances change.
That's right. That's right.
We have to do what we think is right and what the Holy Spirit is leading us to do, in whatever field we're talking about in our life.
Yes. Yes.
You've given us so many good ideas, very practical and loving. Let's serve the book one more time.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome. This is the latest one, Rush. And this is the first one, Chasing the Butterfly, both by Jayme Mansfield. And she's got a couple more in the works that are going to be great as well. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
It was truly wonderful. We learned a lot. And thank you, viewers, both the people who are watching live and those who will join us for the replay. You can always ask questions after the program is over. I will post Jayme's links so that you can find her effortlessly and you don't have to worry about that. This has been Marketers on a Mission, episode number 137, How to Grow Your Audience Through Book Clubs and Small Groups. Tomorrow, I'll host author Robin Bertram. She's going to tell us about her latest release, Hidden Treasures. And she's also going to tell us 4 steps, sort of an overview, 4 steps to write a traditionally published book. But there are still people doing that. Is that right, Jayme?
That's right. I'm one of them.
We're here every day to serve you at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern. This program is designed exclusively for you to help you learn the craft of writing from professional writers. And then how to take that information that, for example, what Jayme told us about today, and grow your audience offline and on, because the bulk of your people are online. It's good to learn these skills. Until tomorrow, I'm Patricia Durgan and Jayme Mansfield. Thanks for being here.
Take care.